Jeanette Nelson. I'm the host of the Creative Mind podcast. This is my daughter, Janaea Nelson. Well, Janaea Terry now, my gosh.
Okay.
And we're going to be talking about how the kids grow and how the mind changes and matures. So, Janaea,
Yeah.
to start in, um, I'm fascinated because we really haven't talked about this. I did not know how she thought until later on when she said she didn't think in words until she was a senior in high school. I'm going, oh my gosh, who knew? But everything I read about learning styles, and I was very interested in it. I thought my children should know how they learn and process things. And I think one of the best ways, if I, looking back at how I raised Matthias, if I knew what I did do now, I would have helped him early on start figuring himself out. That's the best gift you can give a sensory learner. Somebody that thinks differently, just helping them to understand themselves makes it so much easier. And also giving them the hope that your brain will mature and things will get easier. Got to have hope, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So, looking back, I can remember handing you a book of you were reading things like the plague. Yes. Some pretty heavy duty stuff, right?
Uh-huh.
And then looking at what you wrote about them and going, did you even get it?
Probably not.
Well, I don't think so. I think it was just from another point of view, and I just didn't know what to do with it
Uh-huh.
because it was so different than anything I'd ever read or thought about. What Matthias comes up with, I mean, it's the big picture stuff that I'm going, why would an eighth grader or ninth grader think like that? You know what I
Right.
mean?
Not normal, not typical.
Yeah, it wasn't in my brain. So I would have responded very, very differently had I known anywhere close to what I know now. But how was it for you growing up in our household? We homeschooled with me not knowing or understanding.
Well, first I want to say that I thought you were always great. You always knew I was more kinetic, um, rather than like auditory, or sight like my brother and sister. And so you did your best to try to tailor the curriculum to that, make sure I was moving and doing things more with my hands, more projects than actual like book work. And so like in that case, point of view, like I didn't feel anything from you that said I was dumb. It was more me comparing myself to my older brother and sister and seeing them and them just get things really quickly and them especially like on tests, I could study for hours and not get the same score on testing. Worked harder at like memorizing things, all those different things. And so I felt dumb compared to them because my brain worked differently. And so that was where my struggle was, but it had nothing did for me. It didn't feel like it had anything to do with you. I felt like you were great,
It was
honestly.
real, yeah, it was really interesting to me that all three of my kids did Latin, but you understood the thinking behind the Latin. They were going more from the adjective and noun and how they fit together and all those kind of things. The
Yeah,
very sequential thing, but you got the heart of it.
right. I couldn't tell you like that word means this, that word means that, but I could tell you what the whole sentence as a whole meant. And I think that's what you're kind of getting at is that I could more easily get the concept rather than each and every like memorizing each word or being able to conjugate them correctly. That was a struggle for me. But yeah, I could translate really well.
Yeah. exactly. Um, the way the language flowed
Hmm.
made sense to your brain,
Right.
which is really interesting. Um, the way you did math was more in your head than on
Right.
paper.
Right.
It was amazing how far you did get with doing it. But then there's a time point that it was like, I can't do this anymore.
Well, that one
Yeah.
was your fault because you let me have the answer book, so I always copied the answers.
That was in the same book. So yeah, I would do a number of things differently at this point, but yeah, learning to trust and where to trust and where not to. Um, and yet at the same time, I Matthias does that with we did it in science, and there was like 8 or 9 um equations for a science project,
Hmm.
and probably 98% of the time he got it absolutely right.
Wow, that's really impressive.
And yet at the same time, algebra he can do, but he'll never remember.
Yeah,
There's no retention at all. Did you have a hard time retaining it?
yeah. Like I could learn it for the class or whatever, but afterwards it would be gone.
Okay. Um, I remembered the logic behind it. Not necessarily could I sit down and do it. I could probably figure it out just because I understood the logic. Does that make sense?
Yep,
But that's just how my brain works. Um, I think the same way for your brother. But
it's very
yeah.
logical with that.
So um, I think those are the main pieces. And then we tried to teach you. Oh my gosh. And you basically just didn't do it. Um, I tried to teach you some law.
I don't remember that.
Yeah. And you basically listened to them while falling asleep.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, you weren't
Probably why I
verbal.
don't remember.
Yeah, yeah. And it just didn't really click, you know. Um,
Right.
but your sister and brother are very sequential,
Mm-hmm.
that kind of intelligence. So they did really well in school, even though I always thought of you as intelligent, if not more intelligent than they were. The reason being in um, preschool, you had a natural intelligence that they did not have and could do things they couldn't. So I always thought of you as very smart.
Yeah, but I couldn't compare myself when I was in preschool to
I know. Well,
whereas in
that's
high
it.
school and I was struggling, that's when I compared myself and felt, like I was lacking and couldn't do it or was dumb, wasn't good enough.
Yeah. Well, that's it. The curriculum for a preschooler and a grade schooler is very different than the high schooler. And it's far more kinetic. It's far more organic,
Hmm.
and put it that way. Um, than this very, very high logic and high word that
Right.
becomes in high school.
Right.
And that's where a lot of kids, not just people that think in pictures, but so many really struggle.
Right.
And so, yeah, the teachers are trying to make different ways of doing it. There's more connect stuff anymore. There's schools that do projects. Um, if I had known what I know now, I could have asked, a different school, is it more kinetic or do
Right.
you have more experiential?
Right.
Because it has to be experiential for him.
Yeah, that's how I learn. More experience. I mean, hands-on too, but like if I am not in it, then it's not gonna stick.
I get it. I get it. I think we all like experiential, but there's some people that just have to have their hands right there in the midst of the wood or whatever.
Hmm.
Um, so, and that doesn't mean going on a field trip. They learn what you think they learn.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we went out and we went to look at rocks and so forth, and then the teacher would be talking about the rock and so forth. And I guarantee he wasn't getting the word part of that.
Right.
But he was learning a lot about the experience, and the feel of things,
Hmm.
taking in a ton of information. Um, are you sensitive to the physical world around you?
What do you mean by that?
Well, like Matthias, he's very sensitive to the sirens going off 2 blocks away. He's sensitive to things on his skin. It needs to be very soft. Um,
Not as much. I do get sensory overload, but I don't know if that's as much as, the noise of six kids all, in my house. If things are too cluttered or if things are too busy, then I can get very overwhelmed. Probably not to the same degree as Matthias, but it can be too much at times.
get that. Yeah. So it's on that spectrum, but not as much as he is.
Yeah.
Okay, I get it. Um, mm, how much are you sensitive to the spirit realm?
Depends on the situation.
If you walked into a room, could you tell if there's something off?
Yeah, sometimes there's a check. Like I don't know what it is, but there's a check sometimes for sure.
Okay. Um, the interesting part is what we're talking about is the maturing of the brain and how to process all this stuff. So, um, you're in a classroom with a lot of stuff going on. How do you stay focused? You know what I mean? Um, as a mom, how do you stay focused when you know um those kind of things? How do you process when you're put in a situation where you have to go into a place where you're not comfortable as a child? You know what I mean? Those kind of things. And what do you do with that? And what is it? And it's hard for kids.
Yeah.
So, and helping them process through that when you're okay. One of the things you found when you're doing tests
Hmm.
is that your brain doesn't work the same way most teachers does. And so
Right.
you can you explain that?
Yeah, because I think so conceptually, like if a teacher were to write uh, the question of a problem or whatever it is in a different order or just in different wording that I'm not used to or haven't studied, then it's hard for me to get the whole concept of what he's actually trying to ask. And so I would often get very confused about what they wanted. And so I would answer incorrectly, even though I knew the material. I had studied for hours. If you were to quiz me on my notes or on on the textbook, like I could tell you everything. But then when it came to the test, it was, I wouldn't say complete failure, but I did a lot more poorly than I would expect to based on the amount of study I put in because I didn't understand how they worded things because it was so different than how I thought.
Yeah, I get that. Here. So, um, going back to this idea. So when did you actually start? Okay, do you think in pictures?
There's some picture element to it. Especially as a kid, it was more I would make decisions or I would choose answers more on feeling. Like I just instinctively knew like which one was right, and when I couldn't tell you like why I was choosing that, it was just kind of a gut feeling, I guess you could say. But like, oh, that's red, and I kind of know it's red. I couldn't tell you, oh, well, there's different shades of red, and it can turn into pink, and like I couldn't articulate all of those different things. I just knew that that was the color I was supposed to choose. And it, like I said, it was just more like a feeling like I don't even know if I can explain it now, articulately, because it wasn't quite a picture, more of just being led by my gut, I guess, is the best way I can say
Well,
it.
there are neurons in the gut.
Mm-hmm.
And for some scientists, they say the gut is a second brain. And so that gut feeling is very real. And I've learned that many people that think like Matthias actually feel it from the gut. That's
Uh-huh.
that's where they're thinking from. So that's not uncommon to that for them to just this feels right.
Yeah.
Um, Matthias has said recently, the questions were going through my head, but I never answered them because that's a sequential process,
Right.
and you're going by that gut of it. Your gut knows the answer.
Right. Like I couldn't tell you how I got to a conclusion. I just know what the conclusion was, and like by instinct.
Mhm. Yeah. And you were a good student overall.
Yeah.
It's amazing how much the gut knew, even when you can't. Um, Behind the scenes of the words or whatever going through the brain itself, behind the scenes, there's a lot of thinking going on
Mm-hmm.
that just puts stuff together, and you're just going, "Oh, yeah, that's it." Um, so I understand that now. So, at as a senior, then
Mm-hmm.
you started thinking in words, and it grew from there.
Yeah, it's probably when it started where I could actually more articulate, like I said, the sequence and being able to explain my answers a little bit more, and I could actually articulate in my own head what I was processing. And then in college, it just grew and grew from there. And God has been really good about putting me in situations to where I can even grow even more in those areas to where now I can speak in front of a room full of 100 ladies and be very articulate and be very sequential and be very clear in how I'm expressing myself. Whereas as a child, I would not have been able to. I would have gotten mixed up with my thoughts. They would have been all jumbled. I would have been trying to explain something, would never find the words. And so, yeah, the process of that, but really learning it more as an adult than I ever could as a kid. And it didn't start until I was probably 17, 18 years old. So it was much later when those skills started to develop. Whereas even now, I kind of hybrid homeschool my kids, and there's still a lot of pressure, even with this hybrid public homeschool thing that I have of, oh, they're not testing well enough. Oh, they don't can't do this well enough. I'm like, well, that has nothing to do with how they actually think or how smart it is. It's just how you perceive what they're doing. And so it's really frustrating finding this line like, oh no, they don't have to read by 5. They can start reading later because their brain development is going to be later and they will catch up, even if it's much later than most kids. And so just putting all this pressure on myself, on my kids, doesn't do them any good to feel stupid or like they're not good enough because their brain just isn't there yet. And they might be super good at other things. I was always a little more athletic than my brother and sister, or always a little more artistic than them. But I couldn't see that because I was so focused on what I couldn't do compared to them.
Yes. And your kids have caught up and they're doing well.
Yeah, and they're fabulous. All of them are. But it's still always something to be aware of, and where, like you were saying, where they're at, what their learning style is, and not bending to that pressure of, oh, they have to be a certain level or they have to be a certain whatever it is that teachers' expectations are.
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. I can remember going back to this word thing of having, because we're talking to parents of kids that are struggle like you do. And I can remember those hard conversations at eighth grade where you were just so frustrated because you couldn't put it into words.
Mm-hmm.
And as a parent, keeping myself calm well, you had a meltdown, you know, and you did. You sounded rebellious and everything else, and everybody's going, "You've got to stop that." And it's like it's not when she's being rebellious at all. It's just she's so frustrated with herself and being aware of what's going on inside of your child. That when it's a rebellion, you treat it as a rebellion, but when
Right.
it's just frustrating, because it's so frustrating when you can't tell somebody what you're feeling or thinking.
Yeah.
It's just
And I
tough.
remember those long conversations, trying really hard to tell you, wanting to tell you, and just not being able to. And you were really patient, staying up with me for hours sometimes, trying to figure out what was going on inside of me. And I really just couldn't express it well
But
enough.
usually at the end of the conversation, you felt like you were actually heard. I was here. I heard.
Yeah. And that meant a lot.
Yeah. So, um, like I said, it's staying in there. They're doing those kind of things. So through um, the college years weren't necessarily easy, but you were learning how to do those articulations, how to figure out your own brain, those
Right.
kind of things.
Right.
Um, so your degree is in,
It's in communication and with a specialization in broadcasting. So, um, I did a lot more like video and graphic design kind of work. Um, After college, I did work for a news station, which is a completely different kind of writing, but that also helped with the sequential because you have to be very sequential and find out all the facts when you're writing news. And so I think that helped, a lot, grow me in a lot of those skills and just being able to identify, more facts and stuff better. Whereas again, before my brain was always on the concept rather than the facts. And so I've grown in that as well. But again, that didn't come till after college. So even with a college degree, and I graduated with honors, so I could do the work, but it's still a process even after college to learn how to think sequentially, to pick up on details, to be able to then regurgitate those details in a articulate manner to other people. And all those are different steps that, I'm still learning, but definitely a lot better at and could never do in grade school.
oh, that's huge. That's absolutely huge. Um, and I think that helps us all in understanding this process. Um, One of the things that have come up recently is, and Matthias has a scroll basically running his head. Um, and you just have some pictures going through. Are they very vivid or are they partial or what do they look like?
I don't even know if I can describe some of the pictures. Probably mix of both, depending on what it is. Like there's pieces that are very vivid and clear, and then there's pieces missing. Sometimes it's more blurry. I don't want to say it's like a scroll, more like a feeling mixed with like a flash of a picture.
Okay. Yeah,
That's the best I can
it makes
kind of
sense to me.
describe it.
Yeah, yeah. But each person has a little bit different, and so you just kind of flow with what's going on. Um, Matthias has a lot of pictures going through his head, is what he's
Mhm.
saying. So I'm going, but I know they're not, if a picture of a lamp goes through it, it probably is a lamp that he's seen.
Mhm.
So, it has detail. But, if it's a picture of somebody that he's only seen once or twice, it may not have all the details,
Right.
you know, or when he's putting together he's the king of analogies. So you think of a thought, an idea, a big idea, and he will come up with five analogies. And then, given time and expected to say it out loud, he will go through each one and why, which one would be the best, and we'll decide which one of those are the best.
Mhm.
Um, but they're impartial as he's talking it through, and then it gets more specific as he's talking it through in his head.
Sure.
Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So, um, like I said, each one's unique. Ruth is partial because she, particularly when you're talking about something like desperation,
Hmm.
it takes time to figure out what does desperation look like. That would be a hard one, right? Um, and so, yeah, it's taking the beginnings of a picture that we might see on a wall or something, and then creating the wholeness with all the detail and those kind of things for her as a painter.
Yeah,
So,
that's kind of how, if I'm going to do a project, I have to start with a huge concept first and then fill in the details as I go, and then go back and fill in more, and then go back and rearrange, and then go back and fill in more.
right. So you said your creativity goes more in flows rather than like um, the art like back behind me.
Yeah. Like if I were to paint something, it would just be purely on instinct, without even like knowing what the picture would be. It's just what my hand wants to do at that moment.
Hmm. Okay, but you like to do party planning
Yeah.
and and uh, physical craft projects.
Hmm.
Yeah, just creativity of things that just felt flow.
Yeah.
So, um, which is cool because I don't do a lot of that.
Well, I like them. I don't do them a lot with my kids because they make a mess. But
I know, but then you do a lot of other things. You take them out and you go do stuff, and yeah, it's amazing all the things that they get to do and have
oh,
fun with.
yeah.
So, um, your kids love to be outside, and you've got animals galore,
Hmm.
and you really enjoy them, I'm sure.
Yes, very much.
Uh, it's interesting to me. Most sensory people are really relate to animals. The animals love them too. Yeah, it's just there's this mutual thing. It's kind of cool. Um, so yeah, it's just kind of cool. And the interesting part was it, of the three of you, people always liked you. The other two, certain older people really liked, but overall, everyone liked you. It's just,
It's true. They still do.
it's true. Yeah, but there's a natural compassion and understanding.
Yeah. I think was where the feeling gut can come in really well, where you can, like I said, pick up on unsaid things that aren't explicitly expressed in what they're saying, but you can pick up on those intuition things
Right.
with this kind of learning style that somebody who is more sequential miss.
Mhm. Exactly. Um, they're often in human relations or working with people that have disabilities, those kind of areas because you're so good with people.
Yeah.
Yeah. So, well, everyone, I hope this really blesses you. I hope that you understand that our kids are going to be amazing as they grow up, even when it's really frustrating for them as well as you as parent. So thank you, everyone.
Bye.